Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Bethany Dotson, a relationship coach and yoga therapist for professional women seeking to attract a healthy relationship and overcome or reclaim their lives after an unhealthy or toxic relationship. So today I wanted to go live with you today and talk about a really common thing that I see again and again. And I've experienced this myself. And if you're watching this, you might be experiencing this right now too. And that is how to overcome your fears of dating again. And this is, a very, very common, I would say, re-entry issue I see in clients and people that I speak to who've had a pattern of attracting either emotionally unavailable partners or kind of roller coaster relationships, drama-filled relationships, narcissistic relationships. And so naturally, when people exit something like that, they have a fear of repeating the same mistakes. And I want to talk about the ways, I want to talk about the ways that this fear tends to show up. And then I also want to talk about why some of the things that you're trying to assuage your fears, overcome your fears, aren't working, specifically doing a lot of research, watching a lot of YouTube videos, getting tips and advice, tips and tricks, all that kind of stuff, talking about it again and again and again and again and again in talk therapy. All of these things don't fully do the job in getting you over the deeper inner fears that are really kind of the root driving force of you attracting unavailable or unfulfilling partners and relationships. So this is going to be for you if you're in the boat and you're like, I really want to start dating again, but I'm scared, or if you're like, I ultimately want a relationship, but it'll happen when it happens and it's not that bad. I've been single for 7 years. It's really not that bad. Any one of those scenarios, and especially if you have a history of unhealthy relationships. This is not going to be for you if you just got out of an unhealthy relationship and you, like, a week later, you're already on dating apps and trying to find someone new. So that's a separate problem that I'm going to address in probably another video. So let's talk about why some of the things that you might be trying to do to overcome your fears of getting yourself back out there aren't working. A lot of people, especially narcissistic abuse recovery experts, take a stance that you have to be on guard and you have to watch your back and you have to be extremely, extremely, extremely knowledgeable and smart so that you can outwit a potential narcissist or spot a narcissist in real life, right? Spot him and be able to pick him out. And I want to talk about why this is a terrible approach to getting back out into dating. The first thing is that when you exit a toxic relationship, you're already, for better or worse, not better or worse, worse, you're more or less traumatized. And when you're traumatized, you usually have some residual effects after that. You're hyper vigilant. You're already living in fear. And so, a lot of people are drawn to narcissistic abuse recovery experts who kind of preach from this lens because it fits their model of the world. They're already moving through life with a lot of fear and a lot of self-doubt and a lot of mistrust. And when they hear messaging and when they hear content from that lens, it automatically fits their model of the world. But the downside about that is that if you continue to move through your life feeling like you need to arm yourself with a lot of information on the warning signs of a narcissist, and I speak to people and I've seen people spend months, even years after they've left an unhealthy relationship, and they still do a lot of research on narcissistic abuse and how to spot a psychopath and all this kind of stuff. And all that does is ultimately keep you in a place of fear. It reinforces the emotional response and the subconscious response that people can't be trusted, that you ultimately can't fully trust yourself and you need to rely on a lot of external sources or outside advice in order to make a good judgment call in your dating life. And when you're living from a place of fear and a deep sense that you can't trust yourself, you are not going to attract a healthy relationship or a healthy partner. You are actually more vulnerable to repeating unhealthy cycles that you've already repeated in your love life. So if you're listening to a lot of narcissistic recovery experts that are kind of preaching that you have to be on guard and you have to like know how to outwit or outsmart a narcissist, or you know how to protect yourself, these are all, I'm sure, well-intended strategies. But when it comes to breaking the mold, when it comes to getting out of a pattern of attracting a type that you're super, super attracted to, but repeatedly turns out to be bad for you, that strategy is not going to work because it's going to keep you in more fear-based thinking. And when you're in fear-based thinking, you ultimately don't trust yourself. And when you don't trust yourself, you are more likely, you're more prone to fall for more manipulation and gaslighting because you don't have that strong inner sense of who you are built up yet. You're still relying on outside sources to guide you instead of learning to listen and hone and develop your own inner resources, your own inner guidance. Another thing that I often see people do is getting on YouTube videos or checking out other dating experts and getting some tips and tricks. So we all love a good Evan Mark Katz. We all love a good Matthew Hussey. Those are, you know, hunky, good-looking guys, and they have a lot of great information on dating. And even, you know, there are people in this group sometimes that post about YouTube videos on boundaries and all that kind of stuff. And I want, you know, all of that is great. It's all well and good. But when you have 97% of your psychology is in your subconscious mind, 97%. If 97% of your mind is mapped or programmed to equate love with inconsistency or insecurity, or you have a history of attracting narcissists in your life, or you had some kind of abuse in your childhood, it's very, very likely that your subconscious mind, meaning thoughts and feelings you are not fully aware of, are programmed to be drawn to a certain type that's bad for you. And what we tend to do is that we don't fully address our subconscious programming and the trauma that's underneath the surface. We tend to exit a relationship when we want to logically arm ourselves with information and get on YouTube and find out all the stuff, and then hope and pray that that is the magic sauce that's going to stop us from repeating the pattern again in the future. And the YouTube videos that you're watching, the blog articles that you're listening or reading, whatever, the podcasts that you're listening to, the checklist that you're downloading, the freebies and all that kind of stuff, it's not addressing the 97% of your psychology that is largely responsible for why you're attracted to a type that you're attracted to. It's only going to give you some logical awareness, but it's never going to sink all the way deeply into your subconscious mind. The other reason a lot of YouTube videos and things like this don't work, and I work with so many people that have tried everything. They're more on the spectrum of self-help junkies. They've researched, they've tried things, they've done this, they've done that. A lot of times when you're YouTubing things or when you are reading something, it might land for you, but then 5 minutes after you shut down your laptop or you put the book down, you go right back into the subconscious programming that you've been running for the last 20 or 30 years of your life. And so you don't actually apply what it is that you're learning in your life. Not only that, and that's just the human condition, we want to stay in our comfort zone. And it's, you know, a lot of times people need some kind of push or some kind of support to edge them out of their comfort zone. When you're just doing it by yourself and reading a checklist, most people don't have the internal motivation or the discipline to apply it in their life, number one. And then number two, they're not fully rewiring and reprogramming their subconscious mind. And they're not changing on a very deep level their who they're attracted to, who they feel they have chemistry with. And so this is why a lot of this stuff, this is why I talk to so many people who've, they've taken other narcissistic abuse recovery programs, they've taken, a lot of therapy or a lot of counseling, and then 5 or 10 years later, they find themselves, yet again on the other side of a toxic relationship. They did it again. And this is, most of the time they're not getting into their subconscious programming, which is again, 97% of your psychology. That makes up 97% of who you feel like you are drawn to or have chemistry with. So I want to talk about the two things that you do need in order to not only overcome your fears of dating again, but ultimately learn how to break break the cycle of your broken picker, learn how to attract someone who breaks the mold of who you think you're attracted to. And the first thing is self-awareness. And I'm going to take this a step further and use the term interoceptive awareness. So interoceptive awareness is a mental health term. It's used a lot in psychology. It's like self-awareness times 10. It's like 10 layers deep of self-awareness. A lot of people that we work with, they logically know they have a problem. They're self-aware that they have a problem. But yet they keep doing it. And it's because they don't have deep level 10 self-awareness. Interoceptive awareness is the ability to detach from your emotions in a very triggering moment. It's the ability to detach and zoom out and become the observer or the witness of your own behavior, especially in a triggering moment. And a triggering moment for you, if you're falling for the wrong type of relationship, is the moment when you begin to get swept off your feet by someone who has got a lot of chemistry, who says all the right things, who does all the right things. Being able to have the ability to question your own behavior in a highly triggering moment. And most people don't have this level 10 awareness or interoceptive awareness. They just surfacely, logically know that they keep attracting the wrong type, and they're doing all of these things to try to fix it, but nothing seems to be changing. And the gap in that equation is that they haven't fully developed interoceptive awareness. So many people, especially if you have a history of unhealthy relationships, live from the neck up. They are constantly on the go. They're more anxiety prone. This is going to be especially true for you if you have a pattern of toxic relationships. They're more anxiety prone. They don't slow down. A lot of times when we work with women who've been in unhealthy relationships, they tend to have a pattern of chronic busyness, and their lives tend to be packed full of stuff that they have to get done. She works really hard in her career. She packs her calendar full. She's constantly in this state of overwhelm. And oftentimes this is a trauma response. The fight or flight response in your nervous system that was basically turned on all the time, walking on eggshells, doesn't just magically turn off when you leave the relationship. That actually becomes the norm or the baseline for how you live your life even after you leave. And so to get people into interoceptive awareness requires a lot of slowing down. And just like any change in behavior, you can expect some resistance to this, because it's when we slow down that all of the feelings that we've repressed begin to surface. It's when all of the trauma that we have pushed down into the depths of our being starts to rise again to the surface so that it can be released and cleared out. When we slow down, we actually realize our own toxic behavior, our own unhealthy behavior, and not just on a logical level, but on a very, very deep emotional level. And when we need to change a lifelong pattern and choices in relationship, we have to do it from an emotional, awareness, not illogical awareness. So learning to slow down and develop interoceptive awareness is key. Learning to develop that skill of being in a very highly triggering moment and having the tools to zoom out and question your own behavior. Most people will question the other person's behavior, but if you're trying to co-create and change your pattern and attract a healthy relationship, interoceptive awareness is key, and it's huge. And if you've been in any kind of emotionally abusive relationship, that would be considered traumatic. And trauma, by research and science, shows that when we undergo a length of time where we're in a traumatic situation, it greatly weakens the areas of the brain that are responsible for your speech, for your vocalization, and for the areas in your brain that are responsible for you to kind of zoom out and question your own behavior in interoceptive awareness. So an analogy that I use with my clients when we're helping them develop the skill in our work together is something called the overview effect. So when astronauts go up into outer space, it is said that they are forever changed because they leave Earth and they have the privilege of looking down at Earth from, hundreds and hundreds of thousand miles up in outer space. And the perspective that they get when they view Earth from that lens, from that distance, forever changes their life because they realize the significance of living on planet Earth. And they realize the insignificance of how petty some of our behaviors and our trials and our tribulations are down here when they look at it from outer space. They realize how small the things that we fight over and argue over are down here. And that when they come back to Earth after having that view, that vantage point, their lives are forever changed. A lot of them, go into nonprofit work. A lot of them develop passion projects because they realize how precious life is. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that we help our clients develop just in their own personal life. We help them develop that ability to pull out and see the big picture, especially when things are really, really challenging. And this is something that not only greatly changes who they're attracted to and the relationships that they draw into their life, but everything, their career, if there's something that they've been trying to achieve, like a dream, all of these things start to come together because they're realizing how they've been holding themselves back. So interoceptive awareness is the first really big shift and the key that you need in order to overcome your fears of dating again and ultimately learn how to attract a healthy partner. The second thing that you really need, the second shift that needs to happen, is learning to master discernment. And you won't master discernment if you don't master interoceptive awareness. So interoceptive awareness is like the first thing, level 10, self-awareness. And then after that is discernment. So a lot of times when our clients start to date again, they start to experience challenges because they've been doing a lot of work on themselves. And then when we invite them to explore dating and get out into the dating world, they start to meet challenges. And that's because relationship is the arena where they've been hurt the most. And a lot of times what happens, especially if you've tried dating after a toxic relationship or you've been dating and realize you're getting the same kind of pattern again, is that you haven't fully mastered discernment. A lot of people will get into a pattern of overanalyzing someone else's behavior and kind of getting into this like funk of like, well, is he or isn't he? Is he really doing this or is it just me or blah, 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 and going back and forth. And when they go back and forth, they lose that sense of self-awareness. This is why interoceptive awareness is huge, because it allows you to stop that crazy train and zoom out. The second thing is that you really have to develop your level of discernment. And discernment is fine-tuning that interoceptive awareness. Discernment is having so much awareness that you have the ability to see clearly what your intuition is telling you versus falling for low level, low vibration behavior from someone who's not good for you. So a good example of discernment would be being able to tell someone, if you're falling for someone who's good for you and who's right for you versus falling into your old addictive behavior of someone who's not good for you. And I heard this, I read this actually just recently. Someone was talking about discernment and that, she's able to tell now between her addiction, falling for her addiction of low level, low vibe behaviors from unhealthy or unavailable partners, and then really allowing herself to be open and attracted to high level behavior. And it's just a matter of fine-tuning that self-awareness, learning to fully trust your guidance, your own internal guidance, and your intuition when you're in a dating scenario, when you're in relationship. And discernment can't happen you can't just wake up tomorrow morning and go, I'm going to have discernment, right? Because you haven't programmed the brain yet to be fully on board. Your brain and your subconscious mind are still largely mapped to be programmed for your old choices and your old toxic behavior and your patterns and all that kind of stuff. So you really have to spend some time developing interoceptive awareness and then fine tune that, put it in action in your relationship life, learning how to discern, is this my old pattern? Is this my old bad behavior? Or is this my partner's? And so those two things, really, interoceptive awareness or level 10 self-awareness and discernment, are truly what you need if you want to overcome your fears of dating, get past your fears of dating, and then ultimately attract someone who breaks the mold for you. It doesn't matter how much information you read on YouTube or consume on a blog or read in a Psychology Today magazine. It doesn't matter how many times you rehash your childhood again and again and again in therapy. If you're still making the same choices in relationship, it's because you haven't mastered these two things. And actually, a lot of research and even rehashing bad events in talk therapy has shown to be ineffective for people who have had trauma, and especially ineffective for women who've had abusive relationships. Because what happens when you read this information and when you listen to a therapist, tell you that you're prone to this because you have, abusive parents, you're just reinforcing that identity and you're reinforcing it emotionally. And in order to attract someone who is right for you, in order to overcome your fears, you have to emotionally become a very different person. And you have to do that first before you pull in the right kind of person. And again, a lot of people, not knocking anybody, it's the human condition to want to stay comfortable and to want to kind of stay in fear. And fear doesn't necessarily, you might not be saying I'm scared of dating, but it might look like, I'm good being single. It'll happen when it happens. I don't know, dating's so hard. You come up with a lot of excuses to keep yourself safe. So interoceptive awareness and discernment, which are things that are within you, things that you have power over, that you have the power to control and ultimately to transform and change, are really the two things that are going to make great, great changes in who you're attracting into your life, who you're saying yes to in your relationships. And if you want to learn how to master those two things, if you want to get past your trauma, if you want to get past your subconscious programming and all the crap that's standing in your way of attracting a very, very healthy partner for you, then book some time to chat with us. Go to bethanydotson.com/apply, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through step by step, help you get super, super clear on what it is exactly that's holding you back from the kind of relationship, the kind of life that you want, what's stopping you from making those changes, and then ultimately what you need, the exact blueprint that you're going to need in order to, from this moment forward, change who you're attracted to. Learn to attract someone who's healthy for you, and make your broken picker a thing of the past once and for all. So if that's you, if you're smart, professional, high achieving, but you just need a lot of help in the relationship department, go to bethany.dotson.com/apply, and we will be more than happy to help you overcome that hurdle for the rest of your life. So if you have any questions, please drop them below in the comment box. If you watch this on replay, #replay, let me know if you have questions, and I will see you later on this week. Thank you.